It's
That
going.
new intro is sick.
Oh yeah,
Thanks, Ben.
it's
Great work.
bumping. Thanks, Ben.
It's for the first time we've seen it. What up, man? Happy Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. How's your weekend so far?
It's really wonderful. Aside from the fact I'm a little sore. I don't know if everybody out there knows this, but I am a semi-professional tennis/volleyball player. I've been playing the international circuit a lot lately,
There's a
and
lot of qualifiers there.
but I do play internationally, whatever, and it's
That
just
it's on your kid's Nintendo Switch.
listen, semantics, all right? Jake
Semantic.
and I are dominating the competition at We Switch tennis and volleyball. Bowling, I'm not so good at, but whatever. So if anybody wants to come at us, DM me.
From now on, we settle everything on the Wii Sports tennis court.
There's no other way.
Done.
Everybody, welcome around the hub. Live Tuesday nights. Thank you, everyone who's here. What's up? What's going on? How's your week been?
Starting off good. Still, things to do, things to put together before finally getting up and running. But I'm excited about this. We talked to big contractors in the space a couple weeks back. Last week, talked to drivers, how to build your team.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Talking about why in the world you might want to get into FedEx.
Yes. So tonight is really about the people who may not realize what a fantastic world and community this is to join. And Christian and I are going to attempt to share all of the wisdom that we have and all the lessons we've learned to kind of convince a couple guys that this is a fantastic space for them to be in. So what do you think? Are you ready?
I'm ready. You want to bring him on?
All right. Let's bring on Dennis. This is an exciting one for me. What up, man?
Yeah, how's it
going?
Sound good. The audio's working. Fantastic. How's everything?
Everything's great. How you guys doing?
Awesome. Tuesday night, 9:00, ready for bed, but here we are.
Always.
You gotta start taking like Red Bull shots before this.
Yeah.
Ricky puts his son to sleep about 30 minutes before we start, and he's in there for like a good hour just sitting on the bed in the dark. So he's some power shots or something.
Yeah, no, it's energy draining. It's wonderful. I wouldn't give it up. I love my life, but it's absolutely energy draining.
Still. Mine are in college and in high school.
So Dennis and I have known each other. I wouldn't even know the years to put to it, but it had to have been when I was in high school, like 18 or so. I grew up in Miami, as everybody can tell from Dennis's shirt. Let's take this screenshot right here. Definitely, University of Miami Hurricanes are still the greatest college football team of all time, although the couple of years lately have been rough. Whatever, bouncing back. This is our year. So, Dennis, how's the family?
They're doing very well. They're behind the scenes right now, just laughing at me. But
is there any chance that Gavin remembers anything about me and like hanging out in the early stages?
Gavin remembers you. Kendall does not. She was too young.
I've met her a couple of times, but she was 2 years old, 3 years old.
Yeah, we got you. Auto's finally coming in. Got you good. Dennis, tell me, what's your line haul journey been like? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how Rick dragged you onto the show?
So I've been dealing with more P&D side of things since 2004. I've dealt with Sears, Costco, Best Buy, Home Depot, Lowe's. We deal with all of that. We do also the installations for their appliances. And I was looking to get to more of a situation where I could have more of a passive income. So I decided hey, I want to get to this delivery side, get to the side where I don't have to be so liable for so many things. And fortunately, Ricky was in this business, and I reached out, and he was like, "Hey, you're coming in at the right time."
And so for you right now is the time, like this call was recent to Ricky, and are you pretty set on line haul, or where's your mind at right now?
Right now, I have questions. So right now, for me, like I want to go in another direction. I still want to keep what I have, of course, but I want to go in another direction to diversify my stuff. So I definitely am looking into line haul, and I do have several questions. You know, like as far as like the cost of startup, those kind of things. Um, how easy it is to get them. Do I have to buy a big route? Those kind of things.
For sure. And that's what tonight is about. I want to answer those questions. Everybody has very similar questions. And, when we go through the process of talking to somebody who, hey, this sounds great, but I need to know more, a lot of the questions are similar. So the goal is to get a lot of those out tonight. Let's bring Carter on as well. What up, man?
What's going on?
Hey, how we doing, guys?
Real good, man. Welcome. Carter, tell us a little bit about yourself. How in the world did you end up, line haul?
How did Rick drag you here?
So my father was he was a truck driver my whole life. Never was really around. I did a little bit of logistics and shipping out of a grocery warehouse that I was outbound manager for. And then I got into the insurance world and became president of business development, paired up with the CEO. We wanted to buy our own company. Started looking at the websites, the brokerages like BizBuySell, BizQuest, stuff like that. Kept seeing these FedEx contracts for sale. Was completely unaware of the ISP model that FedEx offers. But we knew we wanted to do something for ourselves once the acquisition from the insurance company we were helping develop went through. Did a lot of research, got into the P&D market. Couple deals we got really, really close on. Didn't really go the way we wanted to. And then this past probably 2 quarters, I would say with FedEx, as you guys probably know, did not look too great, especially on the P&D side of things. With fuel and the economy, things like that, just expenses went through the roof, and revenue from FedEx really wasn't on the rise with it. So what I noticed was line haul seemed to not take as big of a hit, at least from a profit margin side of things, and it seemed like it was a safer play. So I shifted my focus from P&D over to line haul, and that's just kind of where I'm at now, is trying to figure out what the differences are, where that could take us versus the P&D side of things.
Yo, awesome. That is a pretty standard thing that I hear. It's, hey, I was looking at, being in FedEx grounds on the P&D side, and the more I look, the more I find challenges with that business. And I'm certainly not going to knock those guys over there. I know very successful P&D contractors. And from my understanding, which I've never been in that space, it's just not for me. The owners of the P&D businesses are extremely involved in the day-to-day operations. And in order to separate yourself and run a passive income business or even a remote business, you need to be pretty large and be able to hire those managers that will handle not only the day-to-day, but the week-to-week for you as well. Otherwise, as an owner, you're right in the thick of it. And then compared to line haul, I think people in their way kind of end up over here because they hear things, and maybe they're true and maybe they're not, or maybe they're just true in certain circumstances. But it's the idea, and the story that's told is spend less time during the week, less hours, making a higher revenue, a higher margin on a truck by truck or truck versus truck basis. And so I guess, Carter, in terms of your kind of path to get here, was that similar to where you ended up? Oh, I'm going to go line haul because it's less effort or there's better margins. What was the real determining factor?
A little bit of both. When you look at line haul versus P&D just simply has to, there's a lot of moving parts inside that business from what I can tell, without actually owning one myself. You know, line haul is relatively simple. You know, you pick up a trailer at a terminal and you take it to another one, and it's either dedicated or you know, unassigned. It's fairly simple. You know, the biggest challenge that I've come across, that I would have questions about is, you know, driver retention, things like that. That seems to be the bigger thing, that I have. But if you have a contingency plan for that, then it's more along the lines of that's what you're dealing with. You know, P&D drivers, they come and go. They seem relatively easy to hire and fire. CDL drivers are a little bit of a different breed, obviously. But overall, there's just less moving parts within the line haul, and then you lead into the profit margins. It seems like a decently ran line haul has a minimum of somewhere, if you're doing it the way it needs to be done and you're optimizing your expenses, you know, you shouldn't be making any less than 20%. Whereas P&D, from everything I saw, especially recently with the fuel hikes, you know, 20% if you're lucky. When you're talking about going in and getting an SBA loan or a conventional loan and you have debt service, you know, you got to pay 11 to 12% out of that profit margin just in debt service. You know, that eats into your profit. If you've got a business partner, it's even more, you know, so you got your margins are a lot thinner on the P&D side. Whereas if you can get a 24% business, now you're sitting a little bit better and you're not quite as worried about paying your debt service, but also, you know, paying your own bills.
Which is line haul side. Yep. And Donnie asks, how long were you kind of down that path of P&D before you really made that switch?
P&D for me went, man, I started the process of researching P&D probably in October of 2021. And that was when I was still trying to make my exit from the insurance company we were looking to get acquired. I probably did a solid 6 to 8 months of research on P&D, of just reading every article I could find online, watching YouTube videos from brokers and consultants and everything, every piece of information I could find. I had a business partner who had some capital, who was ready to go in and invest and could afford the personal guarantee. So I've probably been real serious about buying P&D. Probably started around July of last year, 2022. The company we were looking at, we got their year-to-date P&Ls. They looked decent. As we got into the banking side of things and we started getting the updated monthly P&Ls that the bank wants to see, that's when I started to see the downtrend of the revenue coming in versus the fuel cost, where FedEx P&D was taking a little bit of a hit, and that's what kind of made me nervous. And you know, I really liked the ISP model within FedEx, and so I didn't really want to shy away from it. And I just called my investor and said, "Hey, look, there's line haul out there. Do you want to go that route?" And he said, "Sure. If you can find something that makes sense and we can get some questions answered and you can do the homework like you did on the P&D side, let's go for it." And then I think that, you know, we reached out to Rick fairly quickly. We inquired about a business and Rick reached out within a week. So we've been kind of just talking a couple times here and there.
And the goal, and that's what, you know, we had spoken about it. I purposely didn't answer a lot of either of their questions just so they could ask them tonight. So they'd asked me, and my response was, "Hey, why don't you ask me Tuesday night at 9:00? We need some material for the show." So Dennis, man, we've kind of talked about a lot, but give me your biggest question. You know, what's that one thing that you're like, man, you know, I am so not ready to jump into this business because of this reason? What's your overwhelming?
Okay, so there was a deterrent that I saw. I've been looking over the internet and looking at like the pros and cons of FedEx, and I saw that they had a very large contractor, maybe the largest, and there was an article that said they basically took his whole route from him, and I was wondering, is that something that contractors have to worry about? Because, you know, you invest all this money and then FedEx just decides, hey, it's time to go, and they just take it away from you.
So no, take it off my face. Nope.
All of us.
Oh God.
Okay.
Dude, I brought you on for softball. Like, these are supposed to be softball. Christian, you take that one.
We're going to take this one together.
So what he's talking about, there is a very large brand in our space for P&D and for line haul, and it's Root Consultants. and they run a very successful business. The owner of that business is Spencer Patton. We met him in Vegas. He puts on an amazing show and an event, and fantastic. Your turn, Christian.
So this is a lot to unpack. The short of it is there was, Spencer was putting together, kind of getting a group together to stand up to FedEx and say, hey, we need to, want to see at the table here in order to talk about terms, talk about what's going on with prices and how we can possibly renegotiate. FedEx is a massive corporation. It's kind of tough to stand up to them, and they won't be bullied in a sense. And every right? Like they provide a whole ecosystem. They have a lot to think about. So FedEx essentially decides to go the route of polling, I believe, all of their runs. I think this is, where someone was kind of almost in a sense threatening the space, threatening the business model. And at that point, you have to kind of put your foot down or find the line to cut and figure out who you're going to let come to the table, who you're going to let to speak, who you're going to let negotiate. In this case, is it possible that it happens? Yeah, FedEx felt it was an infringement on the contract, right? We signed a contract, we agreed to terms, and you're telling me you're going to not run your runs, so I'm going to take action in order to prevent that and to hurt the business anymore.
Yeah, and we keep dancing around the issue, right? And I want to make sure, and I understand it that way too, right? Like I understand, and I don't know all the specifics and the facts surrounding it. We just happened to watch it live, and I don't worry about FedEx taking my business because we have a TSPA. It's our contract, and we are very, very familiar with those rules and just making sure that we're abiding by that contract, right?
Okay, here's a question for you. You've been doing this 10 years. How many runs have been taken away by FedEx?
So aside from just general, this is the needs of the business. I know of some, but typically anybody who gets a run taken for them because, hey, we're not going to offer, that's not a lane we do anymore, or, reduction of whatever, they get hooked up and end up getting something better. But on the line haul side, there was the whole Salt Lake City issue. They needed their runs taken away they needed their business taken from them. A lot of them were in jail. There was some shady stuff going on, but it's not something you hear about often, right? In terms of businesses, there might be safety issues. If your business isn't operating safely, if you are just thumbing up your nose at safety concerns, then yes, there's going to be certainly conversations, and you have time and notices secure, but FedEx is going to take care of their brand, right? Like that multi-zillion-dollar brand that wins all the awards on the side of the
$40 billion.
Yeah, whatever.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
but like what you're speaking to is, if a contractor is failing to be available, so if you're on dedicated runs, you have to show over 90% availability in order to keep those runs. If you are anywhere near that or potentially below it, FedEx does kind of, I forget the terminology, but they allow you to fix it, and they give you notice, right? And there's a discussion to have, and you have notice to fix it. Similarly, in terms of safety, it's a no-brainer, right? You're operating your team. You have to have safety protocols. You're operating a truck. You need to be safe, and so for that, they have a metric to track that. And usually, someone falls in a tier 1 through 5. And we're going to actually release a video not too long, kind of helping people understand. But if you're operating safely and you're meeting with your drivers, you're auditing the cameras and making sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing, more than likely you're going to be okay. Your drivers are going to be okay, and that comes with hiring the right people and keeping up with your safety program. So unless you're not holding up that end of the bargain, then most likely we haven't really seen many instances where FedEx does choose to step away from the contract. It usually gets renewed.
Yep, and completely agree. And Dennis, it's not a concern that I have, and anybody that we work with would have about them just yanking the contract. And we can go over specifics of the TSPA, and I can send you a copy of it. And we do a whole boot camp. One of the entire we do a whole session on the contract and making sure we understand exactly what's expected of a business in order to stay on good terms with FedEx. At the end of the day, you're a subcontractor. You are the little guy, and Big Brother wants you to abide by very particular rules and take care of their business. And as long as you do that, then they will treat you well. To wrap this up, Root Consultants is an extremely successful business, and I've spoken to people that are very satisfied with their interactions, in terms of them representing them and selling them businesses. And so I think that the issue, and it'd be interesting to see how that ends up and how that turns out, because I'm sure there's legal issues at play here. That's such a random occurrence that I don't believe that you would be rallying the troops at the terminal and organizing a strike of contractors. But as
That's
long as you're abiding by the contract, it's certainly not an issue.
And just to quickly add, you sign an annual contract with FedEx, and I believe every September you go in and you renew that.
Mhm.
So, leading up to that September date of renewal, if you're in any way nearing kind of not having the availability score, or in any situation where you might not have the safety score, you are notified prior to and have the ability to fix it and make a case for yourself. It's tough to see where you don't get renewed as long as you're being available, you're being safe, and you're planning for contingencies.
Exactly. And that's FedEx's safety, right? For everybody listening, watching, ends up hopefully taking a look at this video. You want to know how to operate a very successful FedEx business. 2 to 3 years ago, it was simply recruit well, recruit better than anybody else, and then retain. It was all about the drivers. And then kind of a distant second was truck maintenance. Are your trucks staying up? Are you making sure that you have the right tool to do the job, which in our case is those semi trucks. And as of late, in the last year, FedEx did a pivot, and they always push safety, but now they made it very, very integral to our operations for not only running a safe business, but demonstrating to FedEx that you're running a safe business. And that's changed. And it's not the worst thing in the world as a business owner for them to force us to be a safer operating company and make sure we're training our drivers on best practices, ensuring that our trucks are mechanically ready for the road and don't have anything that's a potential DOT violation that's going to cause them to pull over. So that's been something that we've seen more recently since I've been involved in FedEx, where safety has to be a much greater concern so that your business continue to operate successfully and you have the opportunity to grow from here on out. So I would, I've always said recruiting matters more than anything else does, but that's kind of flirting with safety these days.
And Carter brought up the point of concerns about hiring and retaining. Can we bring Carter back up? And do you want to hey man, do you want to kind of just tell us your general thoughts or the questions you have around retention or hiring?
Yeah, I mean, so how do you stay competitive in the market, right? CDL drivers are in high demand. So, my big concern is, like you said, you've got to be available for 90% of your runs. What happens when you wake up one morning and a driver just says, man, I'm out of here. That's got to get ran, right? And I can't just step in and drive it because, in P&D, that's something I can do. If I'm there at the terminal, I'm readily available. My BC can do it. Whatever that is, but as a normal everyday person, if I don't have a CDL and I don't have a backup driver, and it's not like we just have backup drivers sitting on the payroll that I would imagine is just hanging out waiting for a call. They're out making money for their families. So how do you fill those roles? How do you stay competitive in the market? Is it benefits? Is it pay? How does that work? How do you mitigate the risk of losing a driver and your contract is now under scrutiny by FedEx? and you get an OTC because you're not getting everything that you need done.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Fantastic question. That's it. That's the question right there. That's everybody struggles with that. And when you figure out how to answer that question, then you will have it made and you will be printing dollar bills. Christian, how do you answer that question for your business?
So here's the first thing I'll say. You bring let's just quickly. I'm just gonna touch on retention quickly. So, and I'm gonna just reference an episode we did last week, which was specifically with drivers who kind of shared their point of view about what they want to see, and I highly encourage that. The biggest thing about that is, hey, is my employer checking in with me? Do they let me know what I have to do, what runs I have to run? If not, are they communicating with me? That was, I would say, the highest on the list that they mentioned in terms of retention. And then it was, obviously there's something around pay, and you have to be fairly competitive, and you get to know that within the markets, whether talking with someone like Rick or with a recruiter, you kind of get to know what the market rates are. The really good thing about FedEx, and you find a lot of drivers attracted to the space because you are in a lot of cases, home daily on solo runs. Team runs, might not be the case, but you have a dedicated route in most cases, or even if it's unassigned, you kind of know where you're going and have a general idea what the schedule is, right? It's drop and hook, no touch. That's very appealing to a lot of CDL drivers who are maybe working at other freight companies that have to work a pallet jack, have to go to a location that might get changed that same day and go to multiple stops. So already that becomes appealing when you're going out and recruiting to retain drivers. And just kind of anecdotally, I'll say here, Rick started working with a recruiter and several recruiters. One in particular that does Facebook ads or kind of AdWords and AdWorks to post job listings for CDL drivers and attract talent in different areas, specifically where he would want. But it would be drivers who are not just on Indeed, and it's really targeted toward them. That brings a nice inflow of potential leads. And then it's up to you, or maybe if you're not a very strong recruiter, someone on your team, or you pay a recruiter to kind of talk with the individual and bring on someone who's good for your team, someone who has experience. You can tell from how they talk about it that they're going to operate safely. And then you're able to sell them on the things like it's drop and hook, no touch. It's FedEx, most likely dedicated routes. And I would say in a lot of cases, that's really appealing to a lot of CDL drivers. And is it difficult to find good drivers? Of course, right? Finding anyone good for your team is difficult, but there are solutions for it, and you can get definitely leads for it. And Rick, maybe you could talk specifically about like how the quality of the leads and kind of quality of the drivers that have come recently, I'll say.
Yes, everything you said, 100,000%. Yes. I think the only thing I wanted to add to that, is Carter. So I like to think of FedEx as a very unique niche world within this trucking industry. Now, we know we need drivers, and we know we need solo drivers and team drivers and day drivers and night drivers. So when I'm thinking about recruiting for whatever business that I need drivers for, I'm first thinking about what separates that business, those runs, from everything else in that market. So the first thing you got to do is you got to research that particular market. What does, the North Jersey market look like for guys who drive out of Woodbridge? Well, you're going to pay them more money than you are for those guys working out of, the Ocala station hub, just naturally, right? It's a different rate of pay. So paying first and foremost, right? But how do you separate yourself from the other trucking companies in that market? So FedEx teams, right? Everybody needs teams. You got to run these unassigned teams, but FedEx does an amazing job about getting your drivers home every weekend. So if you're running a team and you're recruiting, a guy for a team run, you say, look, man, I'll get you out on Tuesday. I'll have you home Saturday night. Sunday morning, you're still home. You still get to see your family. You still get to change clothes, repack your refrigerator. You're not going out for 3-4 weeks at a time like you would be with other trucking companies. So the definition of a team run for JB Hunt, CR England, US Express, Warner is very different than the team driver for a FedEx Linehaul. So I'm separating those. So you as new contractors, you got to understand that your recruiting is going to be considerably easier if you're finding the right driver for FedEx Linehaul. You're solo guys. Hey, do you want to be home daily? Do you want to work a 7 to 4 shift Tuesday through Saturday and be off 2 days and still clear 85, 90 grand a year? That's very possible in Linehaul. Imagine that for a second. The guys coming out of school over the last 2 or 3 years can easily clear 6 figures and be home every weekend. That's not normal. that's FedEx offering jobs and being able to pay us, these guys, a really, really good amount of money. And so with all that, right? So I'm separating the FedEx driving position from the rest of the market. What does FedEx do better? How does the hub and spoke FedEx system beat out the Amazon and the other people that are trying to recruit those same drivers we are? And Chris brought it up. There's the ELDP program, the entry level driver program, where you can take guys fresh out of school, as long as it's a FedEx approved school. You pair them up with one of your lead really solid drivers, and they run together for several months. And you are training that guy fresh out of school, who's still home every weekend, still gets to enjoy the benefits of a FedEx team driver. They're not going out for a month at a time, and they're still making really good money, not the money that they're going to make once they graduate that program with you. We've been extremely successful with that program. It enables you to not hire guys who have these bad habits. Typically, it's very aggressive driving for us when guys come over to our business and from another company, fresh out of school guys, you have a right lead driver. Your lead driver, the guy who's setting the tone for your business, has to be solid. And if that guy is preaching a culture of accountability, of safety to those new drivers, you have a recipe for success, and you just can continue to build upon that business for as long and as really aggressively as you want in terms of adding trucks. So brutally long answer, but fantastic question. And I think to end it very quickly, I'll say you have to separate the FedEx driving position from the rest of the industry. Dennis, Carter sucked up all of your time, right? With that one. Give me another question. You had a banger to start with. Don't throw me another fast.
Well, going into, you were, speaking of what my first question was, when it comes to safety and stuff like that, what are the requirements for FedEx, and how easy is it to get a CDL driver? What are their requirements, so that we're not just, grabbing anybody off the street and because they have a CDL? What do we need to do to make sure that FedEx will say, okay, you're good to go, your truck's good to go, your safety's good to go? Yep. How do we accomplish that?
Fantastic question. Extremely relevant. So on the driver side, your driver needs to have 1 year of certifiable experience. They graduated from school and they've been driving for a year, and you can document that from when you do the employment verification. If they went to a certain FedEx school, and there's a handful of them, we have an Excel spreadsheet that lists all of these FedEx approved schools. They can have 6 months experience fresh out of that school. They need to be reasonably clean from a criminal background standpoint, and their MVR, which is their driving record, needs to be reasonably clean over the past 3 years. They can't have, several accidents. They can't have a bunch of safety violations or tickets. That's what, and it's not hard to find those drivers. Believe me, I've recruited most markets in this country. So that, and then in addition to that, they need to have their doubles, but they can get that doubles after you've processed them and even started, bringing them into your company, and getting that doubles test is they go to the DMV, they take a 25 question test, and they have their doubles cert added onto their CDL. So from a driver standpoint, it's normal. It's not overly kind of preventative of hiring that driver compared to everyone else. From the truck side, that's where we've seen some changes. They changed the system recently where you have to have a forward collision mitigation in your truck system. So imagine, driving down the road, you're in Miami, driving down Bird Road, Latino, Cubano music blaring, sniffing your cafecito, and somebody on a bike runs in front of your car, and the truck brakes will slam on automatically in that scenario. So it's the FCAM that they've made a requirement, and that prevents us from adding these older trucks. So really everything has to be 2014 or newer. From a practical standpoint, it's probably more like 2018, 19 or newer with that FCAM. And then there's other safety requirements. They have to have the lane departure where if you go over the lines, it beeps. It has to have a camera facing the driver, facing the front of the road. I think that's the main stuff. There's probably more that I'm forgetting. So from that aspect of it, you're having to get new trucks, which isn't the worst thing when you're considering the amount of time, the amount of money you're spending on your maintenance program, especially to start. Good question.
Good question.
Anybody else got something? I know we have lots of questions. We keep answering these.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So speaking of trucks, what are the pros and cons of like purchase versus lease? When you just mentioned maintenance. So
Christian, I'm gonna let you answer that one.
So I actually think you have much deeper knowledge than I do about it. I will tell you, trucks are becoming more available again, and specifically, I know a lot of people have been using REL recently. They have a good program which allows you to lease trucks, either day cabs or whatever you might need. But I think, Rick, you might have a better idea of what the truck markets look like and what you feel comfortable with doing now.
So we use both, Dennis. I have leases from REL, fantastic. That deserves its own show conversation. Everybody check out REL if you're looking for trucks. They have a fantastic program. Penske, Ryder, we've used a company called Miller to lease trucks. The benefit of a lease truck typically is you pay a monthly rate for that truck, and then you pay a mileage rate, and they cover all the maintenance. And if the truck breaks down, they're going to give you a spare. That was true up until a year or two ago, where that's not always the case. Those spare trucks that have FCAM aren't readily available. Ryder has taken really good care of us when it comes to those spares. So for you, somebody who has that experience in trucking, let's say, I think Ryder would consider working with you and in offering you a truck or two to start your business, where they probably wouldn't for another brand new contractor without the experience. So when you're looking to get started, depending on your runs, because you buy the trucks for the runs that you have, I certainly would consider Ryder as an option. REL is near the top in terms of leasing. Now, obviously buying is preferred from a financial standpoint, because that monthly payment, when you finance that 18-19 truck with AP Financial over 4 or 5 years at a 10%, 11% interest rate, your monthly payments are going to be significantly less. And if you get that truck that's still under the original manufacturer warranty on that Freightliner EW4 warranty is going, I think 500,000-600,000 miles on that truck, there's just not a ton in those early days where you're going to have to spend a considerable amount of money on that maintenance. So the answer, Dennis, is I think it's a mix, but it's really depending on what run that you're running. Are you doing a dedicated team run? Are you doing an unassigned team run where you're shooting for 7,000 miles a week, and any maintenance concerns are going to shut down that week and cost you, $14,000 worth of revenue? Then maybe we go lease. Are you going with dedicated solo nighttime runs for 400 miles a night, where that truck's going to be sitting at the hub all day long, and it's easy for a mechanic to get there, work on that truck, deal with something? You go, I would go owned in that scenario. But I think no one will answer that question the same. And more importantly, nobody will answer that question the same over the course of their business, because my opinion has changed based on the market, based on what runs I have. And everybody that I've communicated with this, it's the exact same way. So your opinion is going to evolve. But for us, it's just important to make sure you have, the understanding of how the system works. Leasing versus owning is the question, right? How are you going to grow that business? How are you going to scale that business?
Ricky, can I tell you just kind of a scenario, see what you're responsible in terms of lease or buy? So let's say you are a new contractor. You have 4 solo PM runs. out of anywhere, any state. But what are you recommending if I'm new contractor? Would right now in this market, would I most likely have to be leasing? If my concern is I don't want to worry about fixing my truck and all the extra maintenance expenses. I just want to know what I'm going to pay. Would lease be the answer right now?
Yep. So for solo PM runs, are these dedicated runs doing in between 380 and 450 miles a night, 5-6 days a week?
I think that's where we like to see people get started. So yeah.
I'm buying a 2019 day cab Cascadia with a DD. I'd go DD13 or DD15 engine. I want it to be automatic. I need it to be a tandem axle unless it's in Florida. And I want that mileage to be less than 300,000 miles on it. And I'm willing to pay up to $75,000 to $85,000 per truck. And I'm going to call Emily at AP Finance, and I'm going to finance that over 5 years. And the payment's going to be like $400 to $500 a month with a minimum down payment. It's going to still be under that Freightliner warranty. I'm going to extend it, and I'm going to run all 4 of those trucks. And if I have 4 runs, I'm going to buy a 5th truck because A, I need a spare, and B, I want to add a wild run, unassigned run as soon as that terminal gives me the opportunity. Easy question.
That's a good point. Having that spare contingency available and possibly using it for unassigned runs or, kind of the wild runs. So just good to kind of note there.
Awesome. Yeah, no, very, very important question.
So I do want to go back to, I think, Dennis's first question, if that's all right, which was, what does someone have to spend for a run, right? And how do you kind of begin to think about putting financing together? With that, I think, should we bring on our other guests?
Yes, we have one more surprise guest. Let's bring him on. I would like to introduce everybody to Brent. What's up, man?
What's up, guys?
Hey, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I hear myself. Vin, how do we fix that? All right, trying it again. All right, we sound good. Nope. I'm going to talk quietly when I'm talking to you.
So just quick question for the audience. Who has a stronger beard, Brent or Rick?
Mine's short right now, too.
We'll let that come through while we start this chat.
Between the poll. All right, so let me give you a brief little intro. I had a client that was looking to finance some runs. I reached out to Brent as someone who could make that happen. I was like, who's this new guy? And instead of trying to offer me financing for a run, Brent sold me on this super shady program that I think has so much validity, unfortunately. I've been on a journey when it comes to my credit, my business credit for many years. And Brent had the answers for me in about 5 minutes. And I think this is an absolutely fantastic opportunity for anybody who needs to borrow money to get into the space. Brent, give us some advice on what we got to do to get some money to buy these businesses.
Well, like Rick and I have talked, I'm a previous contractor, operating in 4 states. I was buying routes, selling routes, doing all that. Go to the bank and jump through all the hurdles. There's a lot of hurdles to jump through when you're going to the bank to borrow money. I got to where I was a $6 million company, and I was still personally signing things. I couldn't figure out how I could get away from that. As I did some research, I found Jay Galt Finance Suite, and what we do at Jay Galt is we hold our members' hand through a 7-step process. Within 12 months, we can get you funded on your EIN only, so you're not personally guaranteeing the business, and you have access to lines of credit that you can go grab to buy routes or buy runs or whatever direction you're going, or have money if you have a big maintenance issue and you had a thin month or something like that. This would have been a game changer for my operation years ago, had I known it was available.
You said right there, game changer in our growth, and the amount of ways that I went to raise capital to buy runs in those early days. And even today at times, it's like, geez, that's terrible money. And I went on this mission for business credit, right? I needed business credit. And I found this shady world where you had to pay money to like, who is it? Dun and Bradstreet. You had to like give them money to report stuff to the credit. And you had to get like this Uline account and buy shit you don't need. I still have like 1,000, Christian, you know, how many small trash bags do I have sitting in my garage from 7 years ago because I had to buy something from Uline. I didn't even need anything. And I got so irritated with that whole process. I was like, screw it, you know? And it wasn't until I talked to Brent that I was like, wait a minute, this does have some legs. Walk me through where I went wrong and how you helped somebody go right.
You went wrong by buying stuff you didn't need. What we do is we have a person that holds your hand the whole way through the process. They have a call with you to see what the needs of your company are, and they help you spend your own money in the correct way so that it gets reported to all 3 bureaus, not just Dun & Bradstreet. And by the way, you don't have to pay for Dun & Bradstreet. You just have to register with them, and we help you get registered with them and Equifax and Experian Business as well. But yeah, that's it. I mean, you were buying, you didn't need Uline. I mean, you know, if you already started the process, that's where we run into everybody that's ever tried this. They'll try it for 2 or 3 years, and all they do is get to the very bottom tier, and they can't go anywhere else because they don't know where to go. Mm-hmm. Well, our platform tells you exactly where to go, and not only does our platform tell you where to go, it tells you what lenders report, where they report to. And then also what their approval profile is to access funds through them. So you know you're never going to be declined for credit because you've checked all the boxes as they say, and then you know they're reporting to one of the 3 or 2 or 3 or all 3 of the bureaus. So and only 7% of businesses even credit places report for business. So we have hundreds of them in our portal that you have access to, and these are everyday household names like, you know, Uline, Lowe's, Walmart, Sam's, Home Depot, Chase. We have Chase Bank, we have U.S. Bank. I mean, I can go on for days. There's hundreds of them. So, but you access them in a different way when you build the top tier business credit. It's just like a really good personal credit score. You can go anywhere and you get the best rates. The difference is with your personal credit, the more you use, the less they give you, and the lower your credit score goes. With business credit, the more you use responsibly, the more they want to give you.
Yep. And there's so much more to it. And we're going to pass your information out because I think that your option is fantastic for a good number of people that reach out to me. And hey, you know, I got to do an SBA loan to buy one of these businesses. I have, you know, 25 grand. I want to buy a $200,000 business. I'm going to put, you know, 10% down. And I'm just, you know, unfortunately, that's just not going to happen, especially right now. And so I think for that, especially imagine a driver who's been successful, who's an AO now and is training drivers and just has learned the system, but just doesn't have the capital to be able to even support those 2 unassigned runs, get the truck. I see that person calling Brent up, entering his new business and his program, spending a year and basically walking step by step. And I don't get paid for this. Like, Brent hasn't hooked me up, unfortunately. This is just because I think it could be very, very rewarding for those people that just aren't sitting on the cash, but have that ability to build up business credit and then access funds. That's what we're talking about, right? You need that 100 grand, 150 grand to go buy 2 dedicated solo runs to start your career with. And then once you're in, you're in. We know you can grow organically. You can get the free runs. And I'm talking to the people that are still in what I call hustle mode. The people who are willing to put that sweat equity into the business. They're going to drive the trucks. They're going to take the trucks to and from the shop if needed. They can train their drivers. They can train their drivers and preach the safety of their company. And they have this all-encompassing ability to run a very successful FedEx Linehaul business. They just don't have the capital. It's a problem, right? Now, Brent solves that problem. Anywhere that I went wrong there, Brent?
No, and you know, I would add in that, you know, these guys looking at buying, you know, if you've got your company name set up, set your company name up, you can start doing this with your own personal spend and get yourself to ahead of the game to where when you're ready to buy routes, or runs or whatever you're going to do, when you get down the road to that point, if you're not clear at the top tier at that point, you still got to go through conventional loans or whatever, but you can get yourself there quickly, and you can actually pay the conventional loans off and get it all transferred over to the EIN. So you're protecting your personal assets. Separating your personal from your business is the other side of this.
And so can we just highlight, and Rick, you touched on this, in terms of how much money someone should have, you kind of just highlight, if I'm going in, I'm new to the space, I'm buying 2 dedicated runs, I think you just tossed the figure of 100 to 150K. Now, is that about the amount of money I should have in the bank? And maybe Brent, you can comment on this too, because obviously you have help with financing options. What's like a ballpark that should be in my mind and in my bank?
Great question.
As I was buying, I always felt like I needed to have 20% down before when I was buying something, and then I knew I needed to have, if I was buying something like Linehaul runs, I felt like I needed to have at least a little bit of operating account in the bank, whether it be 20 or 30 grand just for that operation. Obviously enough to cover payroll and fuel for a week ahead of time. You get paid a week in arrears, but you got to cover that first week, and you need a cushion beyond that. So, I always just took whatever my initial week was going to cost me and at least doubled it as my cushion. And that was surplus of, whatever I felt like I could put down to buy into the business. So.
Yep. And I think when it comes to how much money you need, it's what type of funding do you have access to? And I think the perfect example would be Carter and Dennis. Dennis has had a business. He's had I don't know if it's an LLC, I don't know if it's a corporation, but he has history with that business. He's going to be able to go to vendors and creditors and be able to access funds to grow that business with in a scenario where other people can't do it. So if you do have that business experience and that history, you're going to be able to access funds. So your need for capital may be slightly less, but you're always going to want to have a considerable amount, several weeks of payroll stored, your truck payments. Now the great thing about FedEx is you start making money immediately. You start running on a Monday, that first deposit the following Friday, less than 2 weeks, you have that deposit that hits and you're paying your payroll off of that. And so really every new FedEx contractor, you need 1 week of payroll in reserves. It's very unique in that sense compared to the other businesses who are just dumping in funds into it, waiting for that first payday. And even in the trucking industry, you start a trucking company, you're out there running, you're grabbing your loads and dropping off, and then you have to take your bill of ladings, which are like 1,300 pages, and make sure they're all signed perfectly. And then you have to wait 60, 90 days for someone to pay on that particular bill. And you might have dropped 10 loads in that week-long period, and you don't have the funding to be able to, afford your payroll and front those expenses. So you have to factor that money, and that costs, I don't know, a couple of percentage points. So the FedEx system in terms of cash flow is very beneficial to new businesses, small business owners, in terms of the need for capital. And I think that's why a lot of people can get in with maybe less money aside from what it's going to cost to just own the businesses. So for Dennis, I think, you have us, obviously, we're going to walk you through this process. I see Dennis in 2 unassigned runs. Get him for free. Let's target a hub in probably Florida. Let's wait till some growth opportunities present themselves. We'll write you a fantastic RFI. We'll get your safety plan going. And I think your experience is going to lead you just to being a very successful contractor very early on, because you've hustled, like, what it's like to run that business. Carter, you have access to some capital. You have some backers, and you're definitely in hustle mode as well. You're going to be, whatever business that you start and are part of is yours. What up, Robert? We got to talk tomorrow, Rob. Let's talk in the morning. Sorry. My brain, I meant to call you today, bro. But Carter, you're going to be the CEO of that business. So you're going to be an effective AO of that business, no matter how big it is. So you just kind of got to understand the nuances of FedEx. And I want to get this out there for both you guys and everybody. The FedEx Linehaul business is very easy to understand. The P&L, its simplicity. You have revenue, you have your expenses, which are very obvious, and you have a couple little additional things. It's simple. When it comes to FedEx, it's easy to understand, but very complicated to execute. And that speaks to the nuances. It's not like the answers just exist everywhere. You have to do some hunting, and you have to make those connections, and you have to have mentors in the space. You have to seek out the right information. And with that time and that experience breeds a simplicity, but it takes some time. And both of you, I think, are going to experience that execution being challenging in both of your situations. And everybody coming in is going to experience that. So let's wrap it up. Christian, how do you want to wrap this up? Give me a good one.
Oh, man.
I want you to ask them if they're still interested. Did we deter them or did we encourage them in any capacity?
It's a good question. So tell us, guys, you still interested?
Sorry,
Carter.
I actually, let's put the rubber to the road here and say, if you got your cookie cutter run, what's your basic percentage that you're going to make off that run in profit? Because that's going to dictate whether or not we're going forward or backwards.
Somebody want to take that?
So I'll say this: like I've run a few P&Ls, and we've spoken to a few contractors we've had in the boot camps or on the shows. Gross profit margins 20-30%, I think, are very realistic. When we start talking net, EBITDA, I think you start seeing somewhere 20 is possible. Some get down to the teens. It really depends on if you have note payments, whatever drags down. I have yet to hear any of the contractors who are paying attention sound like they're struggling by any means. I think the lowest I heard was maybe a 10% net, and that was after paying a manager 6 figures and kind of having all the bells and whistles. So no payments, managers, all of that. So I think, when people get into this space, they hear very high margins. I think you want to kind of set your sights closer to around that 20% mark with some room if you want to add on managers and other things like that. What are your thoughts, Rick?
Exactly. You're shooting for 20, but what's the run? Do you have a 580-mile solo run dedicated 6-7 days a week? Sure, I'm crushing 20%. I'm probably going to hit 25% on that run. Or are you running a 280-mile solo run out of a station, and your driver gets back after 6 hours and you're begging for work, and a couple nights a week you can get another turn? It's all based on what that run is. And obviously your super sexy, attractive runs, they're going to cost more money. People value those. They don't come up for sale as often, or if they do, they're part of a significant multi-million-dollar package. And there's tricks, right? And there's some people we work with now that are doing a fantastic job of running those nighttime runs, and then having slip seating those trucks during the day to run spots or run the local things. And they're only 20 miles, but they're doing several turns a day, and then still running those runs at night. And you look at those numbers, and it's like it's attractive. So there's tricks, and it's hustling, and it's communicating, and it's being on good terms with those dispatchers just to know what's available. Hey, I got this truck, and he's running 400 miles a night, and it's a pretty good run. But like, what if I was here during the day? Now, right now, hell no. It's January. It's always slow, and we're also in the middle of potential recession. So maybe now I'm not pushing it. But economy turns the corner. Christian's BFF Jerome Powell decides to, not continue to raise our rate, maybe cut it back a little bit, taper. We turn a corner, and then all bets are off. So it's looking at the big picture. What time of the year is it? What's going on in the economy? And are people shipping stuff? Come peak season, September, October. All right, it's time to make some money. So I think that the 20% is a very, very attractive goal that I'm very content with running year round on a blended average. That's what I have to shoot for in order for me to consider being involved in a business, taking on a new run. That's my bottom line.
And I'll say anyone that we've seen maybe go dip below that and have issues is really there are some issues with like finding the path to recruiting or retaining, and there were issues there that were fixable.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
we got Dennis still interested. We got Carter still interested. I guess it's let's do another show about what other questions we have left.
Oh, we'll have, I mean, this is more, there'll be a lot more of these. We want to talk to, anybody who's interested in getting into Linehaul and has questions, reach out to us. We'd love to have you on. Every question you have, I think everybody else has the same things, and it's just getting the information out there. And most importantly, if people watch these episodes, it makes my conversations with them to try to sell them a business significantly smoother. Brent, I think I love your opportunity. I think let's talk, man. We didn't have a ton of time to get information out there, but I think it's critical that people understand where the value is. So we're going to link, but tell us how we can get in touch with you if we are interested in kind of be involved in seeing what your pricing is and how your system works.
Well, I'm going to offer anybody that says they saw your podcast a free 1-hour consultation, and we'll pull their business credit report if they already have a business established. And we give them a presentation; they can see if it makes sense for them, and we can go from there. Best way to get a hold of me is call my cell phone. I can say it, or you can post it either way. It's 620-212-5746.
Yeah, oh man, I can't wait till we see the video clip of that tomorrow. Don't you worry. We're gonna have oh yeah. Awesome, man. Thanks again. We'll talk, and for everybody, just full disclosure, Darius and I are now clients of Brent's. I'm anxious to see how long it takes us to get, what is it, a tier 4, 80+% I got to get to.
Yep.
And then I'm blowing some cash. Oh my God, I'm gonna be spending some money. Buying a plane.
Going to Vegas.
Everybody come on. All right, guys. Thank you. Phenomenal. Obviously, both of you guys have information. If you want to reach out, more questions we didn't get to, let's start dialing in on kind of a start date and what we're looking for in terms of a business on both of yours. So I'm excited, and hopefully very soon we're going to have you guys back on now that you're in the process of buying a business, and we will see what that looks like, what you went with. So looking forward to it.
Thanks, guys.
To play out music.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right, man. Good one. These are fun. Like these are the ones I think I have the most fun with. And we want more of these. I think these conversations, there's just never going to be enough time for us to speak to every last little question that a contractor could have. And with the way we answer questions.
Did anyone vote on the beards?
The monologues. I'm sorry?
Did anyone vote on the beards?
Yes. I saw 13 people voted and said that they preferred damn it, they went with his beard. Whatever. It's sexy. Can't argue with that, guys.
Good stuff.
Awesome. Emily, thank you very much. Best finance deals in the game. Check Emily out, AP Financial. All right, man. I'm bouncing. Bedtime. See y'all next week. Same time. Adios.